Sup gamers, Rainy Potato here with the best builds for the Plague Doctor in Darkest Dungeon 2. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every day. The Plague Doctor is your primary healer who also has two very strong DPS builds with varying strength and weaknesses based off her two best paths, Surgeon and Alchemist. Surgeon is her melee-based path, offering her 50% more damage on her one melee attack, Incision, also giving her a strong 25% boost to HP along with a crazy 33% boost to her already OP heals. Downside is you lose application chance to her blight skills, which is annoying but acceptable trade-off since you're running melee for damage anyways. This path, along with any man-at-arms, is the best safety pick any player can make for their squad, boosting a moderately fragile hero's HP to acceptable territory, especially for a backliner, and making the best healer in the game even better for some reason. You of course miss your blight damage, most notably Plague Grenade, but still deliver pretty acceptable damage, especially when considering the bleed dot. The most common loadout with this build always includes Incision, her only real damage with this path, and her two heals, Battlefield Medicine and Indiscriminate Science. Magnesium Rain also is nearly an auto-equip, giving you a solid AoE dot and most importantly Corpse Clear. The final skill can be a number of options and adjusted based off the scenario. Most of the time I throw on Plague Grenade, despite the fact that Blight Application is nerfed on this build. This attack is the only method Plague Doctor has of doing direct damage to the back line, meaning you can both break block tokens and check Death's Door to 2 ranks with this move, and occasionally you'll even get the dot through. Can't ask for much more really for a situational skill, and not much else left in the PD's kit that can do better than this. Alternatives to Grenade can be Emboldening Vapors to boost an even stronger ally's attack, usually against bosses, though unless you're doing a ton of setup, a single strength token rarely outweighs just stabbing the enemy yourself. Blinding Gas is okay, giving you blind and a chance at combo, but it's a pretty unremarkable use of a turn for most of the game and does 0 damage. Cause of Death is very strong against most Act bosses, since all but Act 2 have 0 deathblow resistance, though it's obviously situational on having a dot-focused team and not really usable in standard fights. Disorienting Blast is almost never relevant, unless you're running a specific dazed-focused team, and then maybe it's an equip, but rarely if ever better than just Grenade. Ounce of Prevention is usually a waste of a turn, but I could get behind equipping it for Act 4 and using it if you end up with a free action where one of the phases is dead to dots. Obviously for the Act bosses, Rain and Grenade are useless, so you do end up picking up Cause and Vapors just to be on your bar, though they're rarely if ever used and not worth an upgrade usually, but for the rest of the game, Grenade is the choice. For upgrades, Science should usually be mastered by the second in, though rarely at the first, unless you're planning on facing the Fodder boss, where Science actually clears the Harvest debuff. Incision is another core upgrade, though usually comes after your other top DPS attacks. Medicine is a later game upgrade, and the other skills aren't really necessary except Cause at the last in if you're planning on utilizing it, making Surgeon Plague Doctor a pretty selfless hero, allowing you to spend your mastery points elsewhere for the most part. For trinkets, prioritize her hero trinket annotated textbook, otherwise straight damage is fine here. Bleed trinkets are great of course, but generally found in the Shroud, which is not a recommended region for me as it's much more difficult than the other regions. One downside is her positioning. She is strictly a rank 3 hero with this build, since she loses Incision in 4 and Medicine in 2. This also means she's not really mobile, so back row movement based builds are out. This of course limits your team building options somewhat since she needs a rank 4 DPS to accompany her, ideally with some back row damage to make up for the Plague nerf. Runaway and Deadeye/Venom drop Grave Robber fit well, along with Encore Solo Finale Jester and Occultist. You can put whoever up front, though again you want some backline damage since Incision can only target the front 2 ranks, so DPS like Highwayman or Hellion would be welcome. Surgeon is a strong fit for all acts, and quite strong versus the Harvest Child, while being less great against the bleed resist of the General and the back row positioning of the Librarian, but still serviceable in her role. Overall, one of the best builds in the entire game, and a good selection if you want a consistent healer for a deathless run, even with restricted positioning and damage range. Her second, equally potent build is Alchemist, her Blight path. She loses 20% max HP, making her among the most fragile heroes in the game. In exchange, she gets 33% Blight penetration and 10% crit to her 2 Blight skills. She also gets 50% resist to stun, 33% to debuffs, and 20% to all her dot resists. This is the best dot dealer in the game, with incredible range, letting you dump heavy single target blight damage on ranks 1 or 2 with elite penetration, or a massive AoE blight on the back line. The HP, of course, is a huge concern, as many elite enemies can even one-tap you from full with a dot, and while the dot resist is obviously useful in keeping her from slowly whittling you down, eating a big crit, the dot resist will usually falter anyways, leaving you with a likely dead Plague Doctor. However, to balance this risk, you get elite damage and range, as well as retaining her 2 indispensable heals, though neutered compared to Surgeon. Her loadout is actually pretty similar to Surgeon, though less flexible. You of course keep her 2 heals, they're both elite skills. This time Plague Grenade is a mandatory equip, and of course you swap Incision with Noxious Blast for your frontline damage. And you round out the kit with Mag Rain. This is a pretty static build, only ever swapping out Mag Rain against Act bosses for either Cause or Vapors, usually Cause since you often run pure dot builds with Alchemist. Grenade finds value even in boss battles, as it does not consume combo tokens, unlike Noxious Blast. For upgrades, both Blast and Grenade are core upgrades, ideally by the second in, and often I'll get one at N1 depending what my other damage options are. If I want to face either General or Librarian, I'll get Grenade mastered for them. The rest of the skills will have to come in time, though ideally you get the heals mastered as you lose the healing boost from Surgeon. For trinkets, you're looking for additional blight damage, found either from your hero trinket experiment or in the fetter. Further application chance isn't necessary, but does have value against certain bosses and still in the fetter. Otherwise, HP is highly valued to protect from the pitiful HP pool. One particularly useful trinket that's available from the very beginning is Misstep, a cultist trinket that gives you a massive HP boost in exchange for damage, which is fine since Alchemist doesn't do direct damage anyways. Specific dot resists aren't awful either to top out your dot resist to keep you a bit safer. Alchemist works the same in either ranks 3 or 4, which improves team flexibility a bit, enabling things like Movement, Grave Robber, and Jester, and allowing 3rd rank Occultist and Runaway. For frontliners, I really prefer Man-at-Arms Tank to have access to defend in case Alchemist requires special protection. Flagellant combos really well, of course, with Alchemist enabling Flag, Sepsis, and Necrosis attacks, and he offers a second tank to further protect your fragile healer. Alchemist is strong against all acts, though less so for Act 1 since the AoE can penetrate guard, and the 1 action per round makes dots slightly less effective, and she generally wants penetration for the Act 5 blight resist. And in Act 4 you'll want to top up her bleed resist to 100 for best results. She's a powerhouse against all lair bosses, being arguably the best hero for the general, if you can protect her, and being strong against Librarian and Child. Another elite build, you do sacrifice a bit of security with the HP, but have absurd range and dot scaling damage. For alternate builds, you can just use the Surgeon loadout for Wanderer for a bit more flexibility and damage, but not really recommended for an ideal run. Physician is a meme path that I can't really recommend, but if you want to try it, I'd keep both heals and Mag Rain, and then slap on Disorienting Blast and Ounce of Prevention. Overall, the Plague Doctor is arguably the best hero in the game, and certainly the best healer, with 2 distinct powerful builds that make her a respectable secondary DPS as well. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every day. And join my Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access to my upcoming videos.